The objective for Section 6 is to describe the types of tank cars and their associated hazards. In this section, we are going to talk about bulk transportation containers, tank cars. Tank cars carry the bulk of the hazardous materials transported by rail. Some railroad tank cars have capacities of 4,000 to 34,000 gallons. Because these cars carry large quantities, an accidental release of gases or liquids can cause many difficulties for responders. By recognizing distinctive railroad cars, first responders can begin the identification process from the greatest possible distance. The type of car gives clues to what material may be and the material's weight and volume. Tank cars are divided into the following three main categories: low pressure tank cars, also known as general service tank cars, and non-pressure tank cars. Then there's pressure tank cars and cryogenic liquid tank cars. With pressure tank cars, they typically transport flammable, non-flammable, and poisonous gases at pressures greater than 25 psi. They also transport flammable liquids and liquefied compressed gases. Tank pressures from these tank cars range from 100 to 600 psi. Pressure tank capacities range from 4,000 to 34,000 gallons. A note to remember is, though less common, some older jumbo cars can have a capacity up to 50,000 gallons. Pressure tank cars often have the following features: cylindrical, non-compartmentalized, made from steel or aluminum, have rounded ends with top loading, out-of-sight fittings that are located inside the protective housing, mounted on the manway cover plates in the top center of the tank. Pressure tank cars typically have all fittings out of sight under the single protective housing on the top of the tank. May be insulated and or thermally protected. New pressure tank cars have greater accident protection features and will withstand greater damage without leaking. They feature thicker walls, a lower profile of protective housing, higher tank test pressures. New pressure tank cars are significantly heavier than the old cars and may also be equipped with GPS tracking devices and anti-tampering mechanisms. As a note, you might want to remember that several highly hazardous liquids are shipped in pressure cars that have little to no vapor pressure. Pressure tanks are subject to thermal, mechanical, and chemical damage that will release expanding gases or vapors. Because capacities are so large, affected areas and evacuation zones may be quite large. When exposed to heat or flame, pressure tank cars may levy. Per the ERG, the initial isolation zone for a pressure tank car involved in fire is 1 mile. Cryogenic liquid tank cars carry low pressure, usually below 25 psi refrigerated liquids that are at minus 130 degrees Fahrenheit and below. Materials found in these tanks include argon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. Liquefied natural gas and ethylene may be found in these containers at somewhat higher pressures. Cryogenic liquid tank cars often have fittings in ground level cabinets on the sides of the car or the end of the car for loading, unloading, pressure relief, and venting. A cryogenic liquid tank car is in the tank within a tank category with a stainless steel inner tank supported within a strong outer tank. The space between the inner tank and outer tank is filled with insulation. This space is also kept under a vacuum. The combination of insulation and vacuum protects the contents from ambient temperatures for only 30 days. The shipper tracks these time-sensitive shipments. Per the ERG, the initial isolation zone for a liquid cryogenic tank car is about a half a mile. Low pressure tank cars will transport hazardous and non-hazardous solids and liquids with a vapor pressure below 25 psi at 105 degrees Fahrenheit to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Tank test pressures for low pressure tank cars are 60 and 100 psi. Capacities range from 4,000 to 34,000 gallons in newer tanks made of aluminum, mild steel, or stainless steel. Low pressure tank cars transport hazardous materials such as flammable liquids, flammable solids, reactive liquids, reactive solids, oxidizers, organic peroxides, poisons, irritants, and corrosive materials. They also transport hazardous materials such as fruit and vegetable juices, wine and other alcohol beverages, tomato paste, and other agricultural products. Low pressure tank cars have the following features: cylindrical with rounded ends, at least one manway for access to the tank's interior, compartmentalized with up to 6 compartments constructed as distinct tanks, each with its own set of fittings, capacity and ability to transport a different commodity, fittings for loading and unloading, pressure and/or vacuum relief, gauging, and other purposes visible at the top and/or bottom of the car. For many years, one method for identifying low pressure tank cars was to look for multiple fittings and equipment on top of the tank car. However, some newer DOT TC111 tank cars enclose some or all of these fittings inside a protective housing similar to a pressure car. First responders must now look at the top of the car, and if a single protective housing is present, they must verify whether it is a high pressure tank car or a DOT 111 tank car by identifying the DOT TC specifications stenciled on the right-hand side of the car. Trains transporting multiple low-pressure tank cars containing ethanol, crude oil, and other Class 3 products may be called high-hazard flammable trains. When involved in accidents, these tank cars can release their products, ignite, and violently rupture. These types of accidents are primarily attributed to human error. In addition to the DOT TC111 tank cars, newly DOT TC 117 and 120 tank cars may be encountered. Other railroad cars, including hopper cars and miscellaneous cars, such as box cars and gondolas, you see covered hopper cars, often transport dry bulk materials such as grain, calcium carbide, aluminum nitrate, and cement, and uncovered or open top hopper cars, they may carry coal, sand, gravel, or rocks. Pneumatic unloading hopper cars will unload their product by air pressure and are used to transport dry bulk loads such as ammonia nitrate, fertilizer, dry caustic soda, plastic pellets, and cement. Pressure ratings during unloading range from 20 to 80 psi. Miscellaneous cars, such as box cars and gondolas, well cars, and spine cars, are often used to carry containers of hazardous materials. These cars can include mixed cargoes of a variety of products in different types of packaging. A very special note to remember is that cars may be fumigated, presenting additional hazards. The North American Railroad tank car markings, responders can receive valuable information from the markings on railroad tank cars as well as its contents. Reporting marks, rail car initials and numbers, capacity stencil, and specification markings. The ERG provides a key to these markings in the rail car identification chart. Additionally, manufacturers' names on cars may provide some contact information. Rail cars are normally dedicated to transporting a single material. Dedicated tank cars may have the name of that material painted on the car. DOT TC only requires a finite number of shipping names to be stenciled on the car. Some companies may also choose to include that information as a courtesy. Reporting marks. Tank cars, like all other freight cars, are marked with their own unique set of reporting marks. Reporting marks, also called initials and numbers, may be used to obtain information about the car's contents from the railroad's computer, the shipper, or Chemtrek. Reporting marks should match the initials and numbers provided on the shipping papers for their car. They are stenciled on both sides to the left when facing the side of the car and both ends upper center of the tank car. Some shippers and carriers owners also stencil the top of the car with the car's reporting marks to help identify the car. The capacity stencil shows the volume of the car tank. The volume in gallons and sometimes liters is stenciled on both ends of the tank car under the car's reporting marks. The capacity in pounds and sometimes kilograms is stenciled on the sides of the car under the car's reporting marks. The term load limit may be used to mean the same thing as capacity in pounds or kilograms. For certain tank cars, the water capacity or water weight of the tank in pounds and typically kilograms is stenciled on the sides of the tank near the center of the car. The specification markings includes the standards to which a tank car was built. The marking is stenciled on both sides of the tank. When facing the side of the car, the marking will be on the right opposite from the reporting marks. First responders can also get specification information from the railroad, shipper, car owner, or the Association of American Railroad by using the car's reporting marks. This slide explains the specification markings on the side of the car. The first is who is the approving authority. The second is the class number. And the next letter is a separator that tells about the tank. The next is the tank material. Then there is what type of weld that the tank has. And the last is a number that tells you about fittings, material, and linings. The review question for this section is to list the types of tank cars and the hazards that they may present to first responders. See pages 252 through 259 of the manual for the answers.